Is this? I feel like it's deja vu.
You want a whole one? Oh, here we go. Oh. So today we're talking about necropsy. What is necropsy? Well, some people might not understand the terminology, but necropsy is the same as an autopsy or a post-mortem. It's just a term we use when we're doing the procedure on animals. So if your bird dies suddenly or unexpectedly, obviously a necropsy can be helpful. But necropsies are helpful on all different levels, even if you believe you understand why your bird passed away. It gives us a tool for learning more about what has happened. It helps give you peace of mind if you weren't unsure as to what actually happened, or whether something that you were doing in the husbandry or something that happened in the home may have contributed to the problem. And that can be extremely useful for any future birds you may purchase or any other birds that may be in the home. An important thing to understand is if you haven't fully understood why the bird died, then we can find out if it's contagious.
We're all alive.
The whole idea of a necropsy is to help you understand why the bird passed away. For an individual pet bird, the peace of mind of having much greater understanding of what happened is invaluable. We can get further information as to the circumstances around the death. There's a number of different components to a necropsy. In the clinic here we do what we call a gross necropsy, which is where we look at the birds as a whole and we open up the body cavity and we look at the internal organs as well. What we then do is we take samples that could be of use to us. With a necropsy, there's all these different levels of understanding and all these different levels of testing we can do with the tissues. So the most important and valuable samples we can do, apart from looking at the tissues grossly and seeing for obvious visual abnormalities, is to then start looking at them under a microscope. In order to do that, the samples need to be collected and what we call fixed in a special fixing solution. I believe that any bird that dies deserves an autopsy or a necropsy. This gives us a load of information. Even if we're quite sure of what was happening with the bird and why it passed away, it can give us more understanding and information. And the more we know and the more information we get, the better we can be in terms of the care we can offer and the services and the medicine we can offer. So what we're looking for is what we call gross abnormalities. So where the heart may be a lot bigger than what it should be, or where the liver is a totally different colour and texture from what it should be, which might indicate how the disease was affecting the bird. If we can't give you answers based on that, then we start to take samples. So some samples can be read in the clinic, and some samples are put in some fixation. So the fixation will fix samples which can be used sometimes for many years. Then those samples can be looked at under a microscope by a pathologist, and often we can get answers to what the disease process was and how that disease was affecting the bird. If we were unsure exactly how the bird was being affected by the disease, or we didn't know while the bird was alive exactly what the disease was, then we can get an idea, was the disease contagious, and how might we avoid that disease in the future. Especially important when you've got more than one bird and you've still got birds that you're treating or managing in the home. We not only get fixed samples, but we get what we call fresh samples. Some tests can be done on fresh samples that can't be done on fixed samples. So these days we have things like PCR testing, and PCR testing can help us understand or help us diagnose things like special types of viruses or viruses that we haven't seen before, that might not be showing up grossly or might have minimal change that we can find under the microscope. And sure, sometimes we don't fully understand or get the answers we want from necropsy, but each necropsy we learn. Every species of bird has slight differences between them, even different species of parrots, not just different species of birds. The more we can understand, the more we know about how we can treat them. If you have a bird that has died and you're interested in having a necropsy done for these reasons that I've mentioned, then the most important thing to do is to get the tissues of the bird to the vet as soon as possible. The other important thing to remember, if you can't get the bird to the vet within hours of passing away, just gently soak it in water, with soapy water ideally, wrap it in a towel or inside a plastic bag is probably better, and pop it in the fridge. Tissues should never be frozen before they're examined. Frozen tissues change and cannot be looked at under a microscope, so their value is dramatically reduced and the value of the post-mortem is dramatically reduced. In terms of planning to do a post-mortem, the sooner the tissues can be seen, the more likely you're going to get the results that are of better value. So if the bird has passed away, one of the things that we need to decide when we're looking at tissues is the changes we're seeing in the tissues a result of the disease, or have the changes occurred after death? Because as soon as the bird has died, the tissues and the cells start to die and change. So the longer it takes for us to do the necropsy, the more the tissues have changed as a result of death. It's always of value to look at the birds, even if they've been passed away and haven't been noticed for some time. So say you've been away for a few days, someone has been looking after your aviaries and they haven't noticed a dead bird in the bottom of the cage for say 24, 48 hours. Even though the tissues may have degraded, there is still value in looking at it. But it may reduce our ability to get the answers that we're looking for. Sometimes it can be hard to make a decision to do a necropsy. My belief is that it's always valuable to do a necropsy, and even if you're not expecting to have the full answers, there's still value in doing it, because sometimes I've known what was going on with the bird. We thought we had all the right diagnosis after doing a number of different tests, and when we did the necropsy we found additional information which suggested that either we'd missed something or there was an additional problem going on with the bird that had occurred after our primary diagnoses. It can be hard to make the decision to do a necropsy on a loved one. The thought of actually opening the bird up and taking tissues and doing that can be quite stressful for an owner to think about after spending such loving time with their bird. And I understand that. Some people prefer not to do necropsy and just bury their bird, or have them cremated and just take them home and remember them as they are. But at the same token, I would urge people to think of the value of doing a necropsy, even if it's just for peace of mind, that you understand exactly why the bird passed away and exactly what was happening. So if we were treating, for instance, say a bird where we knew had heart disease but died suddenly, and we say, okay, well, that can certainly happen with heart disease and may well have been the cause. But by doing a necropsy, we can understand more about why that heart disease resulted in that death. Some diseases are exceedingly difficult to diagnose on live birds, so it's not uncommon for us to find a bird that has passed away and we don't have all the answers. So a necropsy can give us all the answers. And there are some diseases that can spread to humans. So the importance of doing a necropsy can tell us about the risk that that bird has played on the human component to the flock. So if you've got family members who have been in close contact with your bird, the necropsy can be helpful in understanding what sort of risk the sickness the bird was suffering was to those family members. And that can be certainly important information if you've also got family members who have become sick at the same time that the bird passed away. Some diseases can be extremely important in terms of this level of disease they can cause to people. And that information, if we have it, may be the difference between someone in your family getting exceedingly sick and having a delayed diagnosis because the doctor hasn't got that information, as opposed to having a very rapid information that the doctor can manage and treat very quickly. Although it may be a very hard decision to make when thinking about necropsy at a very emotional time, one thing to remember is we always get value out of doing a necropsy, and the legacy left behind by that is that we as veterinarians get to know more about the bird, even if it's just understanding, just comparing anatomy and getting an idea for what tissues look like on the inside can be really, really helpful in your vet's personal knowledge and personal experience, so that when other sick birds come in, they can use that information to plan better healthcare plans for their clients and birds for the future. It's an invaluable experience.